listeners to BizBlend podcast where strategy meets soul in the stories of real world business builders. I'm your host Sana, and today we are diving deep into a topic many leaders struggle with silently: visibility. You might be doing the work, hitting your goals, and staying humble, but is anyone seeing you? Well, today's guest knows this terrain very well. Susan Barber, she's a former Fortune 500 IT director turned executive coach, best-selling author of The Visibility Factor, and host of the podcast by the same name. With over 25 years in corporate leadership at Kraft Heinz and a mission to help high achievers finally step out from the shadows, she teaches how visibility isn't about bragging. It is about being seen for your true value. So, if you're a founder, a leader, a professional, or an under the radar talent who wants to grow, this conversation is for you. So, let's quickly begin. So, Susan, welcome to the show, and I'm really, really honored and excited to have you here with us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
Um, okay, Susan, let's start with the basics. Um, how exactly do you define visibility in the workplace? Is it like everybody's talking about you, or you are getting the R&R and everything? And why do you think it matter more than now ever before, especially for entrepreneurs and remote leaders?
Well, I define it as being known for what your talents are and being seen for the leadership and capabilities that you have so you're thought of for future opportunities. And you can't do that if you're hiding and not speaking up. And believe me, that was my story for a while, right? I didn't know how to do it in a way that wasn't seen as bragging. And so once I figured out how to do it in an authentic way, I started teaching other people and they started getting opportunities. I got more opportunities and now I teach my clients that as well. So I think it's something that people have to recognize that when you're an individual contributor, you can go so long without a ton of visibility, but as you continue to climb the ladder, it's almost a requirement for people to know who you are and who your team is and what you do.
I couldn't agree more with you, Susan, on this. And I would love to know, in your journey, how did you turn the things around? Because you, as you mentioned, that you did, experience that for a brief period of time. So how did you turn around the things?
Well, once I got the feedback that I wasn't being visible, which was a bit of a shock for me, I was considered a top talent in IT at the time and was doing all of these different leadership programs. And I think I got complacent and thought, well, I don't need to do anything to be more visible, but I was wrong. And so when I got that feedback, some of the things that I did initially were I talked to a mentor of mine who helped me understand that I had a lot to offer and that I wasn't doing that. And so if a leader, for example, wants to make a business decision and I haven't shared what I know, well, that's on me for not sharing that with him or her. And so I thought, you know what, you're right. Of course, I should be sharing what I know. And so some visible things I did initially were I sat at the table with the executive team, which I had not been doing prior to that. I started observing other people and how they were offering to help or offering their team to help on things that got them visibility. And then I prepared either talking points or questions in advance of discussions and meetings so that I didn't have this panic attack of what am I going to ask? What am I going to say? I had it all ready to go. So it allowed me to be much calmer and be able to ask questions in a way that was thoughtful but also impactful, and that was something that I had not been doing before.
Hmm. Oh, that's definitely done. But I think one very particular and often overlooked aspect of this is that you definitely need guidance at some point of your time, because many of us, especially those who are in the, senior positions, we often think that I don't need any help right now. I've got the experience, I've got the wisdom. Now, I have to just, think about what's my next step. But definitely, I mean, you would need guidance and mentoring.
100%. Yeah, I think leveraging mentors. I had a coach that I leveraged as well when I started struggling with some of this. Also, to help me figure out next steps for my career. I think it's always helpful to leverage someone who can help you see yourself and see what blind spots you may have or things that you could be doing in a bigger way, a more impactful way if you did it slightly differently. And for me, I recognized that I just wasn't showing up in a big enough way. I wasn't really showing what I could do. And I think I was sabotaging in some ways because I was either, there's fear that comes into play. I had some imposter syndrome. I had some other things that were getting in the way, and I couldn't see that. And my coach helped me do that. So I think I'm a big believer that, a coach can help anyone throughout their career transitions, whatever those are. And that may be staying at the same company or maybe moving into something else. But yes, someone needs to recognize that they can always be doing something more if they're open to it and willing to look at themselves and reflect and say, am I doing it the best that I can? And is there something else I could be doing in a bigger way that people could see me in a bigger way?
Absolutely, absolutely. And Susan, talking about your book, The Visibility Factor, it argues that hard work alone isn't enough. Absolutely agree with this. I used to think this a few years back in the initial years of my corporate career, but as the time went by, I mean, it was such a blissful shock to me that
Hmm.
just working hard and achieving your targets and delivering the outputs, it doesn't give a push to your corporate trajectory or your career trajectory. So, can you walk us through the key mindset shifts that someone has to make to move from doer to a visible leader?
Hmm. Yes, I was the same. I definitely believe that hard work was going to be enough. People would recognize that I'm doing all this hard work and working all the hours, and they would magically give me a promotion. Well, that's not what happened. So I think for many people, they believe this. And when I present in workshops or in conversations with people, a lot of people don't know the importance of visibility. And so I feel like part of my role is to educate and help people know how important it is. And so for people who haven't heard about this, what you're trying to do is let people know the value that you're bringing and the impact that you're making in your organization. And I think we all assume that people have meetings with us and they see what we're doing and they know what we're talking about. But I call it putting a movie reel in front of people on a regular basis. That might be a status report. That might be a one on one conversation. It might just be speaking up more in meetings or presenting. And that lets people see that you're doing more things, that you're thinking bigger, that you're being more strategic or influential. And if you're not showing that to them, then they have no idea because remember, they're also really busy. They're in a million meetings, just like you are. And we have to find ways to get in front of them and talk about the successes we're having, the results that we get. And I think that can be hard, especially sometimes for women, because it feels like you're bragging and you don't want to do that. But if you think about it as I'm just sharing facts, I'm just sharing information, I'm just sharing some of the great things that have happened with me and my team and the work that we're doing, it helps you like allay those fears, I think, a bit for people. It definitely did for me. And I started being able to do that on a regular basis, which then, of course, starts having you start having different conversations with people then because they realize you're more confident. You're starting to show up differently, and they hadn't seen that before. So the more you can do it and get comfortable, you have to be really intentional and consistent with it. But when you do that, just taking little actions every day can make such a difference.
Totally, totally. And I don't know whether it's, right to bring in this particular aspect or not, but when we are, let's say I am a very talented, recognized individual contributor, and I'm bringing something which is actually very, interesting strategically. It can be discussed, it can be taken up to the leadership. Sometimes, there are situations where you are not credited or you are not even talked about. I mean,
Mhm.
I hope that you are getting my point.
Yes, yes, I do. Mhm.
And this is especially, I don't know if it is, but sometimes I've also felt that this is more and more specific for women, in the workplaces. So in such situations, how do you make sure that you know they know that it was you who actually brought the point up, or brought this observation or this data or this strategy up to the leadership?
Hmm. Sometimes you have to get strategic about that, and because you may or may not be in the room when it's discussed. And so, what I will tell people to do is I want them to advocate for themselves. They may or may not have a manager who does that for them. So, I'll talk to them about how can you put together whatever your idea is, but not only copy your boss, but maybe your boss's boss or other people in the organization who are influential so that people know that you're the one who sent the idea forward first. And
Right.
I think it helps people recognize that even if your boss talks about it after that, you're the one who brought it up first. I think it's also important to share those ideas in one-on-ones or in other conversations, but maybe not give the whole story away, right? Just give it a tease of what you're talking about so that people can give you feedback and give you ideas that maybe will make that idea even better. But the goal is for you to start having those conversations and not rely on a manager who may or may not be good at getting you visibility. They may not be good at getting themselves visibility, and I think for a long time, I thought that my manager was doing that for me. And then I had this moment of, oh my gosh, they have no idea what I'm doing. So I had to start to do that for myself. So if you can find some really great people that are advocates for you going forward after having these conversations, it really takes that part out of the mix of worrying about who gave credit or not, because you've already put the idea out there yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Susan. And
Yeah.
this is something many would not like to talk more about because there's kind of a negative connotation to it. But I think it's so obvious. I mean, it happens.
Yes. Oh, for
It,
sure.
yeah. And Susan, you have coached many people who felt stuck. They are
Mhm.
great at their jobs, but they are overlooked. So, what are some practical first steps which you recommend to build visibility without losing authenticity?
Mm. So when I understand a little bit more about what's holding them back, so that might be some kind of old limiting beliefs or somebody said something to them and has really caused them to lower their confidence in themselves. We'll start to understand what those things are and help them shift their mindset to a more positive place, right? Even if somebody says something to you, it doesn't mean you have to believe that about yourself, right? You can say that was something that I did. It's not about me as a person. And I think sometimes we hold on to these beliefs and I call it Velcro them to us. We put them on us and we hold on to them for no good reason. And at any time, at any point, you can make a decision to do something different. But one of the things that I think is really a good thing to do at the beginning is to even start understanding what makes you unique. And we're
Mm.
all unique people. We all have unique experiences and perspectives and beliefs. And spending a little time understanding what makes you unique helps you leverage that going forward. And so, for example, you might have different strengths than I do. You might obviously you live in a different place than I do, but we've experienced similar things in our different places. And so, what can we bring to the conversations that we're having that demonstrate our strengths or perspectives or things that we've experienced and
Mm.
show that that is actually valuable? And I think sometimes we're trying to blend in so much because of social media or comparison that we tend to forget the things that we're great at or embrace those things in a bigger way. So think about what makes you unique and how can you push that a little bit more in your conversation so that people know. And it can be as easy as somebody asks a question and say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so good at that. I'd love to help you on that." Right? I'm not bragging. I'm offering to help, but it's gonna show somebody that I'm really strong at whatever that thing is, and then they're gonna remember that about me. So this
Mhm.
is how you start to do it. You're just offering to help, or you're sharing an idea or a story or an experience that you've been through that might help the conversation that you're having move forward. It might help a project move forward or your business. If you're working in a business and you need ideas, this person that's working for you might have some great ideas. And so
Mhm.
just brainstorming that with people can help them show what unique qualities they have that they could share with others.
Hmm. Well, that's a very, very useful, I think first step to start with. And also, Susan, do you think that communication? I mean, leadership. We always talk about how communication is so important. Do you think for, let's say, individual contributors as well, having communication, clear communication with clarity is important. I mean, how they can start with this, because that's what I
Mhm.
believe in. Because
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. And so I have a new workbook coming out in October. And what I've recognized is even since the book came out, the visibility factor came out as I've been speaking and having workshops, people are looking for scripts of how can I say this in a way that is going to show the value that I bring, or how can I talk about the things that I'm doing in a way that isn't bragging. And so I built this workbook and it's called Your Journey to Visibility. And the intent is to give people those scripts, those ways to start to say things and be able to do it in a way that feels comfortable for them so they can change whatever words they want in it to make it fit their situation. But to
Mhm.
me, if you are not talking about the things that you're doing in a way that people see it as valuable, well, then it's just you're not taking advantage of opportunities. So you might be in meetings today. And if you're in meetings and you're not taking advantage of asking a question or commenting on something or doing a presentation, then you have missed an opportunity. And that is not to make anyone feel bad, right? I didn't know this either. And so I think sometimes people think visibility is extra work. And then I'm going to have to do these extra things. And I want people to take advantage of the things they're already doing. Let's take advantage of one on ones you're having or meetings that you're in. And how can you start to share the things that you're doing in a way that people can hear it and see it as valuable? And then talk about the impact that it's having on the business, on the company, on your group, on what you're trying to do to move things forward. And that's what changes people's perception of you is when you are starting to really add value and show impact, makes it really hard to, say that person doesn't make a big deal in this company or isn't making a big deal in this company for us. And we need to take advantage of helping them grow, helping them get into new positions. So sometimes
Mm.
it is the language that we're using that might actually be holding us back. And that's what I have seen in coaching people and in workshops I'm having with them. They have no idea that they're supposed to do this. So that's why I'm trying to get this message out to as many people as possible because I don't want anyone to be hiding in the background and letting other people take their credit or, talk louder in a room when they could be sharing great ideas too.
Wow. So I guess this is your upcoming workbook, Your Journey to
Mhm.
Visibility, will be
Yes.
released in October. It's really
Yes.
great. Really great.
Yeah.
It definitely
Thanks.
sounds like a game changer.
Yeah, I hope so.
And Susan, I mean, one which I absolutely appreciate. I would love to know your experience. So, you were in leadership at Kraft Heinz
Hmm.
uh, for 2 decades, and
Yeah.
that's not a joke. I mean, how did your own journey with visibility shape the work you do now? I mean, what did you wish you knew earlier, actually?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I started at the bottom in sales and worked my way up to a director in IT. So I switched
Wow.
functions all the time, which I think actually was good. It pushed me out of my comfort zone. I was in four
Mm.
different functions. I was in supply chain and food service. And I think all of those experiences where you don't necessarily have the content knowledge walking in, I definitely didn't have the education for IT specifically, and it forces you to get creative with not only learning things, building relationships, but I think it also helped me recognize that I had learned a lot of things along the way, and how could I leverage those things that I learned already Even for I'll give you an example. I was asked to take over network infrastructure. On
Mhm.
paper, network infrastructure is not something you would have me lead. But what
Mm.
they said is, we know you have a great team under you in network, but they need a strong leader. And so I went in as a leader, asked the hard questions, leveraged common sense, leveraged my experience, and helped that team grow and helped our work at Kraft grow. So that is some things that I think sometimes we assume that we have to know all the content enable
Yeah.
in in order to do a job, right? But it's much more important to think about, how can I leverage leadership in this role and help the team grow, help the organization grow, do something innovative and creative that helps us make a bigger impact. And I was so happy that they told me that that's what they really wanted, because I thought, I'm not sure I know enough of the technical details to be able to do this. But my team did, and that's what I had to rely on.
You never know, you know. I think it really feels good to know that, oh my goodness, okay, I'm being put up at this position for my leadership skills. I mean, that's so good to know.
Yes, I know. It helped a lot.
Yeah. Lovely, lovely, Susan. I absolutely, respect that. That is so much to learn. And especially for women in leadership, it feels like we are taught to like keep our heads down and work hard, and it often backfires. It often like puts stalls our progress, our visibility as well. So I think it sets such a great example, especially for all the women, entrepreneurs or professionals or individual contributors out there, or women founders.
Yes. I mean, and what was interesting to me, if I can share this, was,
Yeah, please.
I figured it out when I was at Kraft, and then I came into this world of owning my own business, and it came back. All of those things came back, of hiding and not wanting to put my videos out or not wanting to speak. So it was really interesting to me, it can keep showing up until you recognize that it's happening again. And it took me a
Mhm.
little time to recognize that. I was spending time building a website and figuring out a company name and doing business cards, anything that would keep me hidden, which is fascinating. But once I recognized that I was doing it again, it's like, Sue, if you are not talking about your book and the work that you're doing, no one will know. So I just think it's an awareness that we all have to have, that we might be doing it, and not
Mhm.
to, be mad at ourselves for doing it. It's a self-protection for us to do something that's scary for us or big or something new that we've never tried. And once I saw it as, this is just self-protection and I am in a good place where I can start to move forward and just try. For example, I created my own Facebook group and I did my own live videos at first just to try it before I did it with a group. So I did little things that made me feel comfortable and build confidence. And then when I did do lives on LinkedIn, for example, I was much calmer. When I started my podcast, I was much calmer. So I think it's just recognizing that we have a responsibility to talk about the things that we're doing and the things that we want. If you want a certain career level, if you want to do something bigger, start talking about that, because one of the lessons that I learned is, if I am not talking about it, no one knows. Even if I think they know, they probably don't. No one knows. And I have to show value in order for people to see me as valuable. And if we're not doing that, then that's on us, right? So I have really thought about it a lot in this world I'm in now of coaching and trying to talk about the work of visibility. Is I have a responsibility to do that and get that out in the world. And that's why I'm doing podcasts like this with you, Sana. And if people have something that they want to get out in the world, then how can they do that? And it doesn't have to be, getting on a podcast or speaking in front of a group if that's not comfortable for them day one. But what could they do? Could they write an article? Could they post something on LinkedIn? Could they have a conversation with someone? Those are things that might be more comfortable initially until you build confidence. And then whenever you're ready, start doing more. There is no race here that you have to be doing it day one. Believe me, you would not have wanted me to do it on day one. But I think the more I did it, it just helped me be more confident. And then I worked with other people who were doing great things and I learned from them. So the more you can build your confidence, the faster you'll be able to start doing it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it doesn't necessarily has to be perfect in the beginning. Like you mentioned about
No.
you were doing it just, the LinkedIn lives and the Facebook lives by yourself, and then you got a team. But at least you started with it.
Yes.
And then gradually it gave you the confidence. And I also want to point out this, because when we talk about visibility, just not only in your workplace, but outside of that, especially in this day and age of social media, I think uh, having your own personal branding, to a level that you would think is good for you, whether it's sharing your opinions or sharing your expertise around the industry or the category that you are into, connecting with like-minded people or individuals online as well. I think that also gives you a lot of head start. You can connect with your colleagues and your managers and the leaders online as well.
Yes, I totally agree. Because sometimes external visibility actually helps you internally in a company.
Mhm.
So you might be out speaking or doing things externally to your company, and they're like, wow, she's really getting a lot of great press. A lot of people are seeing the value she's bringing. We should be doing more with her internally. So
Yeah.
sometimes that's a strategy I'll leverage with executives. So go out there and share your thought leadership. Talk about the things that you're doing when you speak. Talk about when you do whatever your hobbies are. Even leveraging, like one of my clients is a runner. So I'm like, take a picture of when you are running and what you were thinking about and how it helped to clear your mind and give you, more space in your life to just reflect and calm down. Everything can be an opportunity for visibility. It's just
Yeah.
how you think about it and what is your outcome. So I always try to start with outcome. What do you want? And if you want to get promoted, well, what are the ways that we can help you do that? Or if you want people to just know who you are, start small and start building that out. But it's really fascinating to me that there's so much a little bit of strategy around this, but the more strategy you employ, the more you can start to see some differences, right? In how people see you, how you see yourself, most of all, which I think is the biggest part of this. If you don't see something different in you, then other people can't see that either.
Totally. Great. So, Sue, if our listeners they would like to get a hold of your book, The Visibility Factor, and your upcoming workbook, Your Journey to Visibility, and also connect with you, what would be the best way?
LinkedIn is a great opportunity to connect. So just tell me that you heard me on Sana's podcast. That would be great. But also, you can go to my website, Susan M with a M in the middle for Mary, susanmbarber.com. You can connect with me there. I have every article I've ever written is out there, access to the podcast, and you'll start to see more information about the new workbook there as well.
Wonderful. I'll make sure to have all the links and details in the show notes for our listeners. And Susan, thank you so much for shining a light on what so many, not only leaders, but all of us, we silently wrestle with, because visibility isn't a vanity, it is a value alignment. And your approach makes the process feel not only accessible, but also empowering in its own way. So thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
And to all the BizBlend listeners out there, remember that being seen doesn't mean being loud. It means standing in your truth, showing your worth, your value, and owning the space you have worked so hard to earn. So do check out the visibility factor and keep an eye out for Susan's upcoming workbook, Your Journey to Visibility. Also connect with her. Mention that you heard her on the BizBlend podcast. And as always, blend strategy with soul and watch what happens. Until next time, keep showing up. Thank you.